Hello again there guys, Brian here at 3TR, and I'm here to do my follow-up video for my Bioshock Infinite game review. And I'm here to talk about as for why I did not like the Bioshock Infinite Ending and a whole why it somewhat ruined my experience of it. To simplify it, to give you a clear answer, it was telling the story one way and gave me a complicated ending, which in my opinion just doesn't work for this form of storytelling. Now, there's nothing wrong with adding twists in movies like, say, Inception, which is a highly complicated movie and goes over several different themes involving dreams, how they work, sharing dreams, how gravity works, how time works, how you can have dreams within a dream's layers, and how to awaken from a dream by using kicks. It establishes its own set of rules, and so when it throws a twist which seems to have a complicated answer, it works because from the get-go, the movie tells you the rules of the world that we are venturing into. Unfortunately, Bioshock Infinite doesn't do that. A clear example of this is that in Bioshocks 1 and 2, the story is told in a way in which the player actually has a choice, and these choices build on top of each other and determine the outcome of the story. If you are a good person and you choose to save all the little sisters, or majority of them, then you generally will get a good ending, and sometimes if you do half and half, you'll get one ending depending on, you know, how many sisters you decide to harvest or save. And even in Bioshock 1, there's also a number of moments where there are certain characters which you can choose to save or not save. And so having a twist ending with a complicated situation seems to add more because your choices allowed you to get to this conclusion. That's not really how it is in Bioshock Infinite. Now, before I go any further, I would like to state that I don't dislike the ending because I don't understand it. I understood it quite well. It's just I felt that the endings that I thought were going to be presented would work better for this form of storytelling. Because the fact that you are playing as a character and do not have the option of choice in matter really kind of messes with the overall vibe that the story projects. Now, there's only two moments throughout this entire game where you actually get to choose how you want to respond to a situation, and that is in the beginning when Elizabeth asks you, what necklace do you want her to wear between a cage and a bird, and then another one where this black and white couple, and you have the choice of whether to throw a baseball at them or throw it at the announcer. Those are the only two times throughout the entire game where you actually get to choose the action. If the game was full of these and had a number of them that actually had significant outcomes, then this ending would make more sense in terms of the themes that it's trying to project. Now, for those of you who I'm sure have already beaten the game and know the ending, at some point near the end of the game you meet an elderly Elizabeth, and she gives you a letter to give to a younger version of herself saying this is how not to become me. And it seems like this version of Elizabeth has turned into some type of weapon and destroys, I believe, New York or another version of Columbia. So in that essence, I thought that it was going to do an Infamous in which the older self needs to send or do something to the younger self in order to get them ready or to prevent them from doing a terrible act. So an ending that I thought this was going to come out to was that Booker would have to kill Elizabeth in order to prevent her from becoming a tool of Comstock and probably destroy the, earthly ground order that the government had established, which is why Comstock wanted to build a city in the clouds. That was one ending that I thought it was going into. And then as we go further along, after you kill Comstock, you destroy the tower that Elizabeth had been living in throughout the majority of her life with the help of the Songbird. After this, she teleports you and the Songbird to Rapture. And Songbird dies due to the pressure, and as you venture out, you find yourself standing on the lighthouse at the very beginning of Bioshock 1, and apparently it is a doorway which leads to, I'm going to call it the center of the universe, which connects to all these multiple different realities, in which there are multiple Comstocks, and it leads to this simple moment of where Booker was being baptized. The problem I had with this one is that The game hinted at the possibilities of multiple realities, but not on this scale. Now, with Elizabeth's ability to open up tears and to bring things from other worlds, or even to venture into other worlds, it would have seemed simpler if there was like a World A and a World B, and we can travel between them, and they have different outcomes or different points of views of a certain situation which is taking place during that time in Columbia. It goes much further than that. It decides to use multiple versions, saying that there are thousands of versions of Cumberstone and there are thousands of Elizabeths. And when you get to the conclusion, you find out that Booker is actually a younger version of Cumberstock before he built Columbia and before he really did any of this whole jumping between realities and pulling things through. And it's a complicated conclusion to what could have been a simple story. Another ending that I thought they could have used was that Booker was going to sacrifice himself when he finds out that Elizabeth is his daughter, and he doesn't want her to become a weapon. He's going to sacrifice himself so Elizabeth goes to Paris and lives out a life of her choice instead of the life that Cumberstock, which is an older version of Booker, wants her to be. Instead of being that he wants her to have freedom instead of becoming this great messiah who's going to lead humanity into a future that we could not possibly imagine. That is an ending for a complicated type of storytelling if it's projected right at the beginning. The writers were using misdirection and using philosophies on themes that your average gamer is not going to think about, and only someone who is an expert in this form of thinking or philosophies as in alternate realities and multiple versions of yourself and being able to pull things from different dimensions. And I mean, it's very science fiction based, but if you're going to keep to a linear form of storytelling, then keep the ending simple. Don't try to throw all these philosophical ideas in which the gamer's not going to understand. He's like, what is going on here? And it just didn't work for me. Now, I'm aware that there is an end credit scene where you see another version of Booker with baby Elizabeth and Anna, and apparently this version of Booker is alive, but it doesn't stop the fact that the entire game was building up to a moment where all these different versions of Elizabeth drown Booker before he becomes Cumberstock, and so the entire game of Bioshock Infinite never happened. Columbia was never built, none of these tears ever happened, so I spent an entire game preventing the story game from ever actually existing, and that is a bigger WTF mode or moment than the Mass Effect 3 ending ever was. I mean, it was just kind of like, why would you go in this direction? Why don't you go in the general direction that the game has been pushing towards? Yeah, it's hinting at all of these big ideas, but these big ideas should be brought to the front more. If you're going to go in this general direction with these endings, then have these little moments which hint at the ending play a bigger part. They're kind of just there to push the story through, to kind of be pushed to the background, and you really aren't going to notice that unless you stop the game and think about every time you use these tears and you go to these different versions of Columbia. And that's just something that I don't think most gamers are going to do. Now, I may stand alone in feeling this way towards this particular ending, since everyone is praising the game and giving it 9s and 10s, as I gave it an 8.5, and I stand by that decision. If the ending was much simpler and used maybe one of the two endings that I had suggested, I would have given it like a 9.5, but the fact that it didn't, and it kind of really gives me no reason to play the game again, because I know how it's going to end. And generally this would work for any other linear game, like, you know, a Call of Duty game or a God of War game or an Uncharted game, which, you know, you do the same thing and you get the same outcome. But the fact that this was projecting to be more than what was presented, and it ended up being something completely absurd and just out of nowhere, really ruined the experience for me in a whole. Now again, I did not think this was a bad game. This is still a great game and a must-own. Just the ending kind of ruins it for me in a story-based setting. So that is why I did not like the Bioshock Infinite Ending. If you actually have any comments of your own regarding the ending, please tell me or send it to me in a private message. I'll be more than happy to respond to you. And if you like this video, please like, comment down below, and please subscribe to check for me my future movie and video game reviews. And like always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.